First ever tournament. Played my first competitive games outside of Ladder Showdown. Watched plenty of content since 2016. Been trying myself for the first time this year. First competitive experience, had a blast. First competitive tournament. Bro, where are all these firsts coming from? Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Grand Challenge 2026 number 2 has been announced. Wait, Grand Challenge 2? When was the first one? Okay, let's go on Pokemon Home and see how badly it went, because no one's heard about it, and Pokemon Home hasn't even updated, so the last thing was 2025 Pokemon World Championships, so even if you participated in the Grand Challenge, you can't see the results of it, and it's not just me. Does anyone know how to check the last tournament results via the Play Pokemon website? Except this is just a lie, so I'm wondering if this is some kind of like reply bot that thinks Pokemon Global Link still exists, and now the Pokemon Company has made a complete mess. So I want to talk about the Grand Challenge number 1, but to get to that point, we also have to go to the Pokemon Championship website, which doesn't really have any details, and they even have a section on Grand Challenges, but nowhere to see Grand Challenge results. This is just the Championship point breakdown, but this is the Championships website, and that guy said go to the Play Pokemon website, which is pretty much impossible to find through the Pokemon website. And flashbang warning, because when you search Play Pokemon, you go to the Pokemon.com website, but then on Pokemon.com we have Play.Pokemon.com, which why do we even have the Championship website, where if we go to PlayPokemon.com, it doesn't have anything where you can look at the results. So that's why I'm saying that dude's reply is just a lie, and didn't even give a link, because now you have to go digging around so much. So, like, it's not under resources, whatever the Play Lab is now, so that's just confusing things even more. This is just getting started, so this seems like a very intro thing. Local tournaments, but that's going to be local and doesn't have anything about the Global Challenge. And then if we go to the Pokemon website and try to go to the Play Pokemon events, there's still nothing. Why do we have 3 websites for Play Pokemon now, when less people are playing Pokemon than ever? And I guess technically 4 because of the Pokemon Home app to keep updated with information that isn't anywhere else, that isn't updating? And idiots will still try to tell you that Pokemon VGC is the most popular it's ever been, even though the Global Challenge debunks that. That for the last Global Challenge of 2025, we only had 10,000 entrants, which is 75% less than the 40,000 for the Global Challenge that we had at the end of Pokemon Sword and Shield. So I really wanted to know how many people entered the first Global Challenge of VGC 2026, now that it's more important than ever before because you need those championship points. Also, if you're interested in competitive Pokemon, it's a great place to actually try out and get a taste of competitive battling before you go to your first regional event, and there's no barriers. You just sign up and you play for free. So it should have a high attendance. And that means if we had a successful Worlds, or VGC 2025 really was the biggest year ever for VGC, then we should see that momentum. We should actually see people playing. But when we look at the numbers, the discussion thread on r/VGC has a lot of comments because people are talking about their experience, but only 21 upvotes. And then the Cerebi thread about the news of the next Grand Challenge, 8 comments. One of which saying why things don't work, the rest are like parody bot shenanigans, and then nothing. What? And then we have 400 likes out of 128,000 views. What? Like, so actually, yeah, VGC is giga dead. It's only gotten worse and worse since actually Generation 6, which is crazy because no one played Pokemon Sword and Shield, and then it's only gone downhill from there. So getting a few hundred more people at an in-person event where they added thousands of dollars to the prizing doesn't mean like, oh, VGC is bigger than ever before, especially when we have millions more sales compared to Sword and Shield, but the player base is down well over 80%. Like, we're at 10% of the competitive players compared to Sword and Shield. VGC hasn't grown. It's the worst it's been since, like, Generation 5. So let's see how the Grand Challenge went for people. Lost repeatedly. Me too. Didn't get to play much. Went 13-4. Happy because my last game was versus someone who I lost to in a Limitless tournament. So, like, some people that are dialed in, but, like, 13-4 is not a lot. I saw something crazy. finished 8-0 with a rating of 1620. So you do 8 games. How well does that place you? 937. So actually top 1000, earns championship points. And that's a weird metagaming that's always happened with the online competitions, but if you want to get first place, you have to do like crazy stuff like go 41-4 and then maybe you'll get first. So yeah, this guy only did 8, was satisfied with the result, held on, and then ended up being top 1000 because the game is just that dead. Watched plenty of content since 2016, been trying myself for the first time this year, which is absolutely mind-blowing, and also shows how, like, no one plays competitive Pokemon. How's anyone saying VGC is bigger than ever before? Oh, it's just idiots that don't even play Pokemon and believe Wolfe Glick's lies. He's just an evil person who lives a life exclusively of lying, cheating, and stealing. Awesome. And then the rest of the Pokemon community is, like, too casual and makes no sense. So yeah, watch plenty of content since 2016, and then takes 9 years to do it, and then they break even and they're happy with this. Be heading to my first regionals in Vegas this year, so it's definitely a test run for me and get the initial jitters out of competing. It's also a really, really bad sign because there's a lot of people that are saying like, oh, this is my first tournament. I finally started playing competitive Pokemon. But that means we have these people that are finally giving competitive a go when we're at rock bottom. So that means over the last decade, the entirety of the competitive Pokemon player base has just phased out, and the only people playing now are inexperienced and just kind of stumbling in for whatever reason, but it means like we're still at 5% of what we were just a couple of years ago. First competitive experience, had a blast. Fought and clawed my way back to a 12-12, had a blast. See, it's one of those things where, like, as the person, like, I am the #1 person for getting people into competitive Pokemon historically throughout the entire history of VGC and competitive Pokemon. That's just a fact from my channel performance and my content. Wolfe Glick is not getting anyone into competitive Pokemon, which is why it's more dead than it's ever been, and has only gotten more and more dead as I get more and more cancelled inside of Pokemon. And what makes competitive Pokemon grueling to get into is that you will get dismantled by experienced players in a way unlike any other competitive game, unless we're talking about like Season 1 League of Legends where you're jungling for the first time and then you go up against a Shaco one-trick. You will have your life ruined in ways that you didn't imagine, and that's just going to be the average Pokemon battle for someone that's just trying to get into Pokemon for the first time. So you spend 100 hours making your team, and then you spend another 100 hours just getting punched in the dick. Just straight. There's nothing you can do about it. You're just going to lose. You're going to have an 80% loss rate, and eventually you start clawing back some wins, and people just don't put up with that anymore. Back in Generation 6, people did that, which is why VGC and the competitive community was a lot larger and felt a lot more vibrant. Now, people burn out immediately, and then they just live vicariously through cheaters. They watch Wolfe Glick and then pretend that they've done anything. So in the current state of things, I don't believe anyone is having a blast with competitive Pokemon, because if people that went 12-12 had a blast in competitive Pokemon, we would have more than 5,000 people entering a global challenge. We would actually have a thriving community that's on the up instead of at the lowest point it's been in over a decade. So that's why when I see something like this, my initial reaction is negativity, because when it just comes to the way people engage on social media and Reddit and Twitter and stuff, or about any kind of community, it's a toxic positivity. This doesn't feel like an earned positivity with the state of VGC and how everything is going, and potentially the performance. Like, I guess if you're just used to getting destroyed and you finally show up for your first tournament, going 10-14 is an accomplishment in Pokemon, which is crazy to think about. That's just how rough this game is. And because 95% of the Pokemon community is unsalvageable, I'm not taking the 1 in 20 chance that this is actually just like a sincere, normal, well-adjusted person on the VGC Reddit. Finished ranked in the 660s. Happy I finished so high with my boy Toxicity. Alright, and that's like another thing. Okay, so 15-6 gets you 654. Went on a long 8-game win streak. Feel pretty good about it. Yeah, people don't even play the full amount and even close out anymore. And then like, top 600. First tournament for me after not playing competitive since Black and White. And like, the crazy thing about these comments is that this is like VGC Reddit. This is where the engagement and discussion is happening. And it's only these new people that are like fresh. That means they're like, oh, I'm going to get into VGC finally. I'm going to start getting into this stuff. So they head on over to Reddit and then they talk about what's going on in their first tournament and they find out about these things. And those are the only people. And then we look at the numbers and we're down 95%. So that means there's no established VGC players except for like the 100 or so cheaters that have just been cheating the entire time for like the last half decade or even longer in Wolfe Glick's case. Didn't even realize what time it ended. I only did 43 or 44, and they did horribly. Arcaludon Rain Team, top 150, 32-9, 32nd place. So yeah, like that's kind of it. It's all new people, and then the people that only live in VGC. So 32, this is what I'm also talking about. We're like, oh, if you want to actually get into like a high ranking, like top 100 or something serious, like top 32, you need to put up some ridiculous stat line. 32nd place for 32-9. Kind of sad I went down so many places overnight. Still a great performance. So that's what I mean. You also got to play that meta of like, well, if I lose, like if they lose one more game, then they get like 105. But if you go on like a 3 more game win streak and then you go 35-9, now you're like 10th place. So I guess they were also in like a good spot. They were like, ooh, 14th. All right, I'm going to go to bed. And then a couple other Japanese players went and stole the top ranking for them. And then hate Regulation H. So boring. What? Oh my god, these kids are also just so cooked on mythicals and legendaries that ruin Pokemon. Regulation H is like the only time it could be interesting. Except also not really with power creep, because the average Pokemon has been turned into a legendary. So you have like less interesting legendaries to go. I don't know. First ever tournament. 4,700, 3,500, 8,000, 1,900. Crazy first competitive tournament. Bro, where are all these firsts coming from? Also, they changed things this season, which I didn't even hear about. I actually emailed Pokemon Company support asking, like, if the placement is based on regional or worlds, and they told me, your ranking is how you get championship points. But apparently that was wrong, because, there's 3 websites, an app, a ton of different rules changes, and Pokemon support is just useless, and now no one knows what's going on. So, yeah, it's regional based, which means, like, if all top 24 players are Japanese and you get 25th, does that mean you actually get first place championship points for the global challenge? That's interesting. But here it is on the website. Grand challenges are like global challenges. The only difference is championship points and other rewards are limited to competitors within regions managed by the Pokemon Company International. And that was something I thought was weird about global challenges, because like, yeah, what if it's all top 100 are Japanese players because it's 99% of the player base and they go and dominate these things? So does that mean like no one gets any points until you're way out there? So like, yeah, they finally have this change, but if you ask Pokemon support about it, they just gave you the wrong information. Cool. Also, a lot of this stuff with like the championships website and a lot of the news updates and changes have happened fairly recently, so maybe only like 30 people actually knew about this. Especially when you look at it's like, oh, this person's wrong on Reddit, and then has 2 downvotes and like 1 person just kind of coming in. Okay, it looks like more than 5,000 people entered at least. Played my first competitive games outside of Ladder Showdown, and then got 68.95, which I'm proud of. So I was just kind of showing like, VGC Showdown players, trash. And then there's a deeper layer to figuring it out, because like, oh, depending on how you do, I got 200th, and then the championships were awarded, and it turned out I got 30th in my region. So we could also kind of see it's like, yeah, it's still 98% Japanese players, but we don't have all of that, and the app hasn't updated, and the second grand challenge is going to come out before you can even see how you did in the first one. So everything's broken, everything's weird, none of this makes sense, and I didn't even, like, I was going to talk about another thing, but it doesn't even feel like there's room in the video for it, because, oh, we're playing Regulation H competitive, but if you go on the ladder, it's Regulation with mythical Pokemon. And the VGC rulebook hasn't updated, but I think they said that they're going to change the format for VGC in December, so you can't practice for events including regionals, which are awarding championship points and also like prize money and stuff. But no, guys, don't worry, VGC is the biggest it's ever been and everyone's playing it. It's definitely like a real, alive and well format, even though everyone's a cheater and no one is engaging with it whatsoever. Cool. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.